Welcome back to My Crazy, My Rules, where the only crazy thing is my fondness for reading your letters and seeing a piece of your thoughts. I'm your host, Benn Shannon, so grab a coffee, settle in, and let's listen to this next letter together, because that's what we do here. We share our crazy one story at a time. I don't think that anybody can argue last week was one hell of a week. Last Monday, let's start with last Monday. I think my only thoughts last Monday were which of the tributes I was going to be attending on 9/11. I was looking at different ones here in Texas that I wanted to go to that paid a tribute to what was the biggest terrorist attack on the United States. It was 9/11, 2001. Planes were hijacked. The Twin Towers were destroyed. The Pentagon, one of the most protected buildings next to the White House in our nation, had major damage from a plane that crashed into it. Another plane crashed into a field in Pennsylvania, and what we were to find out about all these planes were they were hijacked, and thousands upon thousands of people by the end of the day were dead, with thousands more injured, and nothing really being known till the end of that day. And now I would ask myself, looking back at it, what could possibly upstage that? We had a day where planes crashed into buildings, people were killed. You watched people jumping from the Twin Towers to their death because it was better than burning. What could possibly upstage that? What in the world could possibly take our thoughts and prayers away from those people and their families that lost their lives on 9/11? Well, let's go to the day before. Let's go to September 10th, this year, 2025, just a little bit after noon. Charlie James Kirk was assassinated while doing his comebacks tour Prove Me Wrong table at a college in Utah. While students and young adults from all over watched, a bullet pierced his neck. Blood immediately began pouring into his shirt and onto the ground, and basically that was an immediate end to his life. And along with the students and the young adults who witnessed that, his wife and his two precious children witnessed it as well. And I think that's a day that none of us are ever going to forget. And the question that immediately came up was, who was the assassin? Honestly, that doesn't matter. Why was he assassinated? That doesn't matter either. What was he saying when he was assassinated? And you know what? That doesn't matter either. And so you're going to ask me now, well, Ben, what does matter? And the thing that matters is that millions of people believed in this man. The fact that this man was a celebrity to some and he was a hero to others. Many people would watch him on a daily basis just to hear what he had to say to the young adults of this country. The debates he would have back and forth, and the fact that he would strive to be as honest as he could. And I'm not going to say everybody that listened to him was a fan. A lot of people listened to him because they wanted somebody to prove him wrong, which was the whole idea of his talks, was prove me wrong. And so people would listen to see if he could be proven wrong. So not everybody loved this man. Not everybody thought he was a hero, but so many people knew him and knew of him. One of the things I'd said in my podcast right after it had happened was I turned 64 in just a few days. My youngest child is 17. I have other children up to 45 years of age. Every single one of us knew who this man was. So he was touching generation after generation. And one of the things I'm going to show here is how much everybody was affected. One of the biggest things is due to social media and immediate news, not only did the people that were right there witness this horrible tragedy, but millions of people through social media and instant reporting saw his assassination as well. And it was uncut. You saw exactly what happened. And in the aftermath of this horrible event, millions of lives were immediately changed. For millions of people, this would be the first time they witnessed death. And in this case, it was a horrible, gruesome death. And that is what I want to touch on a bit in this episode. I want to talk about the psychological aspect of what happened. I don't care if it was right or well, I do care if it was right or it was wrong because we all know it was wrong, but I don't want to go into the politics. I'm not going to go into the debate about what people thought of him or anything else. I want to talk about what people are now feeling. And first I'm going to do that by kind of sharing about how I found out and how I felt immediately. And then I'm going to go ahead and talk about some other stories that I received, some other people sending in exactly what happened in their life and even a conversation I had with my daughter. But the way I found out, as many of you know, my son and I have a very close relationship. He and I talk on pretty much a daily basis. And even when we're not talking, we send each other back and forth memes and jokes. And a lot of my children and I do that. Most of the stuff between my son and myself, though, are not really the type that I would go and talk about here on this podcast. And Thursday morning, the morning of the 10th, it was no different for us. Matter of fact, about 11:30, I had just sent him a particularly inappropriate joke, and I think the adjective my wife used when I said to her was, "That's disgusting." So remember, my son and I had both been in the fire department, so basically nothing is off limits. So this joke was fairly disgusting, like my wife said. And then a little after 12, he calls me back and he started the conversation with, "Oh my God, that was the most horrible thing I'd ever seen." So I just started busting out laughing. I thought he was talking about the joke I sent him. And I thought he finally got it. And then he told me, oh God, it was horrible, Dad. I could have gone my entire life without seeing that. So I'm laughing even harder. I'm still thinking he was just totally grossed out by my joke. And I'm like, finally, I got him. And I told him it wasn't that gross. We send each other even worse. And he goes, "Dad, no, it's not the joke. Didn't you see what just happened?" And I hadn't. I had been working on my new podcast studio, and I was not around the computer. I wasn't listening to anything besides some music. And then he went on to tell me what had happened. He said, "Dad, Charlie Kirk was just shot on stage at a university, and I have no idea if he's alive or dead." He goes, I watched it when it happened, and he's like, "Dad, you don't need to see that. Don't watch it." And my son knows that, I was in the fire department a long time, 911 dispatcher. I have PTSD, and he knows there's some things I really don't need to see, and this was one of them. And I thank him for watching out for me. But you have to remember, my son was a paramedic, not only in the streets, but in a very busy ER, in a pediatric ER here in Texas. So he's seen a lot. He's seen things that he would call me at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to say, "Hey, Dad, just go hug everybody for me." And I knew he had just had something very bad. So for him to say how bad it was, that told me a lot. And he also was quite shaken up, and we were talking about it. And at that point, we really didn't know the extent. My son being a paramedic, he was telling me there's no way he could have survived. He said it was immediate. And we hung up the phone, and I was overwhelmed. I couldn't believe what it was he just told me. I couldn't fathom that this just happened. So I immediately got on the computer and I immediately started looking at the different articles. And I can't tell you what my feelings actually were at that moment because I don't know what they were. I mean, the night before, I'd just been watching a lot of his videos, a lot of his responses. And I think the biggest thing I was overwhelmed, and especially not knowing at all what exactly had happened. So as it happened, and as I was hearing about it, and as a lot of my friends were texting me and direct messaging me on Facebook and Instagram and things like that, I was hearing a lot of people's feelings. I was hearing a lot of people's fright, horror, and I immediately started thinking about that. I was quite upset and overwhelmed by what I felt. I was extremely upset. I was just angry with some of the responses, some of the people that were celebrating at this man's death. And I couldn't draw myself away. And this is one of the reasons I have PTSD so bad is my immediate thought was going to his wife and his children. You know, you see so much about how his children absolutely adored their father, and they're very, very young. And you could see how much his wife absolutely loved him. And it was always apparent, no matter what else you could say about this man on either side, the love for his family was just biblical, for a lack of a better word. And he quoted the Bible and things like that all the time, but he had a biblical love for his family. So what I asked from some of the listeners was, tell me what you felt. Tell me how you got through that day. What did you do? And so I'm going to talk about the first one from one of the listeners. And I am quoting these, so if I sound a little bit flat, it's because I'm reading their letters verbatim. My feelings have been complicated. Initially, I was disappointed that a martyr was created. It's not where this country needs to be right now. Then I saw it. I was shocked. It was so instant. All I could say was, oh my God. And then the worst feelings came. I saw what people were saying on social media, some really upset about it, but then the people who celebrated, I was disgusted. It was hard for me to wrap my head around such horrible things. Everything he stood for aside, this person was murdered. He was a year older than me, had a wife and two very small children, and they were there. Something about that trauma resonated with me. Instant loss. The moment that officially broke me was when his wife finally spoke. Standing there next to his chair, she wore her grief on her shoulders and still stood so strong. It was when she brought up their daughter who wanted her daddy. She doesn't know anything of politics, just that her mommy and daddy love her and her siblings so very much. That's it. She knew love. And when she asked for her daddy, Erica didn't know what to tell her. None of us would know what to tell a 3-year-old in that moment. And Erica told her the best thing she could think of at that time. Daddy was in a job with Jesus so he could afford her blueberries. I don't think I'll ever look at blueberries the same again. In that moment, my mommy heart broke. Nothing else mattered. Nothing he had ever said mattered. Nothing anyone felt about him mattered. All I can think about is this little girl, so small, so innocent. This will stick with her. And when she's older, she is going to know what people said. That's the tragedy of the internet. It's there forever. I've never been religious in my adult years, but this entire experience had made me want to reach for the Lord. I've looked up churches near me, not to know the scripture, but to know the love that he sowed within his family. I never cared about Charlie Kirk, but I think that's all he really wanted. You can absolutely tell that this is a parent, and she talks about her motherly instincts, but any parent of a child any age knows the fear of losing that child. Children expect to lose their parents at some time. It's the circle of life. But when you lose a parent so young, there's no understanding for it. I remember when my mother passed away when I was 6, and how hard it was for my father when he brought me into his room to explain it. And my mother's death, unfortunately, was expected. It was cancer. But here is 2 very small children, and one of them, when it happened, that was there, the noise scared her so much she wanted to run up to her dad for her dad to hold her. And she will eventually find out that the noise that scared her so much was her father being murdered. From another listener, it immensely affected my family. We all listened to Charlie Kirk. I would lay in bed at night and my husband would be listening to him. We talked about how intelligent he was. It's amazing how much grief for someone we have never met felt that day. For his wife, his kids, his family, even the kid that got arrested, his family, I cannot imagine all the pain. Charlie was a voice for a lot of generations to come. Even if you didn't agree with him, he still welcomed you in to talk and to discuss what was bothering you, and it's absolutely disturbing and heartbreaking he was killed for it. Again, somebody else here is talking about the family aspect, and what this listener brought in here is there was multiple families affected. Charlie's family, absolutely. The murderer's family, think about it. The family felt so much grief for not only Charlie's murder, but now knowing they were going to lose a child or a sibling. They now understood after seeing those pictures who it was, and rather than try to reach out and protect him and help him get away, they turned him in. And I cannot even fathom how much that must have felt for his father to do that. The last one I'm going to read today, I first heard about Charlie Kirk being shot from a post on Facebook. At that point, I didn't know if he was still alive, so I went looking for the news. One of the first videos I found showed him being shot. I was shocked and heartbroken because it reminded me of the John Kennedy and Martin Luther King assassinations. Yes, I am that old. My heart breaks because too many in our country think it was okay to kill him for speaking what they didn't and don't want to hear. I believe Charlie was a Christian and is now with God in heaven. I know God is in control and his will is being accomplished. But I wonder if the country can be healed and whether rational debate can happen without the risk of assassination. And I have fear now, when I didn't before that assassination, it will become the weapon of choice for people who disagree with conservative and Christian values. So this person has brought up another aspect of it. We had the sense of loss for the family, and we had the sense of our own loss, and even for the shooter's family. Now we have somebody here who is absolutely afraid. They are afraid that what happens now when somebody speaks out, do people now think, well, you know what? I'm just going to shoot them. I don't like what they're saying. Time to take them off the books. That's very, very scary. I think these 3 letters say it all. We all hurt, even though a lot of us did not know him personally. One of the things is, in a very traumatic incident, we will take a living snapshot of where we were, how we felt, and we never forget it. And I'm sure for quite a bit of us, this is going to be one of those times. And I'm going to kind of finish talking about the letters with a conversation I had with one of my children, my oldest daughter. And she called me that evening and she started speaking to me, and she wasn't, I don't want to use the word confused, but she could not understand what she was feeling. And this is my oldest daughter. A little bit about her. She was in the Navy. She was in the fire department. She was aboard the USS George Washington, which is an aircraft carrier, and they were actually called into the harbor on 9/11. So the 24th anniversary of 9/11 was coming up. She was there as a witness after the fact. And while she's still having to go with that each time it comes around each year, the day before, she is alive during this and hears all about it. And matter of fact, she heard about it from me because she works in a hospital. I knew she wouldn't have heard about it yet. And I texted her to call me. So as my son brought it to my attention, I brought it to my daughter's attention. So when we spoke that night, she was telling me, Dad, I don't understand it. This is the first one I can say I really don't understand. And one of the things we talked about was, as we get older, of course, things like that hit us a little bit harder because we're a little closer to our natural demise. But she told me that wasn't it. That's not what she was feeling. So as we talked, we finally realized it was a feeling of loss, but it wasn't for Charlie Kirk we were feeling the loss. It was for the innocence of an entire generation that now witnessed this horrible event. And she also said it's the innocence she lost because even in dealing with everything else, we still had the feeling of security, knowing that as an American speaking what we believed, we were protected. And then it comes out to be, no, we're not. We're not protected from our thoughts or for our thoughts and our statements. People can take them different ways, and their only thought is to harm us because of them. And I think that's the biggest thing she and I both pulled away was our innocence was lost and our security was lost. And that mattered a lot. And I will finish with the thought of a lot of the letters I received did have the common factor that I've talked about. But this was a well-planned terrorist attack. And I call it a terrorist attack because that's what a terrorist attack does. It promotes terror. It promotes terror, fright, and that's what we have now because now we're becoming scared to voice what we call our right to free speech. So I God bless his wife, Erica, and their 2 very precious children. And I pray that his memory is forever a blessing. Thank you for listening to another episode of My Crazy, My Rules. No one's normal, and here, that's something we celebrate. If you've got a story to share, a comment to make on this week's letter or our whole podcast this week, or just something else you want to say, please email me at letters@mycrazy.com. myrules.com. And you can send it anonymous or not, just like everything I read tonight. Other than when I spoke about my own family, everything was anonymous. The letters go to letters@mycrazymyrules.com. And if you feel that you need help, if you feel confused and you can't figure out things for yourself and you need someone to talk to, please seek help now. Don't wait. You can contact the National Suicide Hotline by calling 988, or you can text them by sending a text to 741-741 and ask for help. You can also chat with them by emailing them at 988lifeline.org. These people are there for you. If you like today's episode, please make sure to subscribe, share the show with your friends, family, or anyone that needs to know they're not alone. I'm still striving for my first 100 subscribers, and I really need your help to do that. So, until next time, it's my crazy, my rules. What's yours?